Soul sacrifice.
Stop staring at me like that. What? You need to read me? Well, fine.
I think back to all that we had faced together. I'd been skeptical for much of my journey, but no doubt remained. Things were progressing exactly as the Red Sorcerer had described. If the prophecy held true, Magusar and I were damned to slay one another for all eternity. How many times have I felt this ache in my heart? If the prophecy is true, the world will repeat. Grimm's eternal recursion. What number am I? Had I not met Red, I'd have lived out my days without ever knowing, without ever doubting. Who can say what ignominious ends my prior lives had met? What good does knowing the true nature of the world do a man who cannot change it? Had I the means to break free of this fate of death and murder? As I made my way to poor, mad Magusar's side, I noticed it. His fearsome aura had suddenly disappeared. Instead, I saw a familiar sorcerer sitting on a rock.
vessels.
I don't want to die!
Instead, I saw a familiar sorcerer sitting on a rock.
Well, this is a coincidence.
The 13th Persapius. Why had Avalon's master come to such a place? Every corner of the land bore the scars of Magusar's rampage. The world's end drew near, true to Grimm's prediction. Avalon, Sanctuarium, Grimm. It was a summit of all three leaders. Grimm's hierarch, Terwin, had proffered a scheme, a way to disrupt the endless cycle.
A blasphemy against the whole of human history.
Persapius had refused, but the agents of Grimm advanced their plan just the same. However, their plan required the Ars Magica. The memory of Persapius. In order to get it, they would need to sacrifice him. The Order of Grimm aimed to stop time for all the world. If the world never reached its end, the painful cycle could go no further. Terwin had explained her plan to them in full. A familiar tool would play a vital function. The apple shades red kept. The illusions they bring about are unique. I can say from experience, the feeling is akin to dreaming. Furthermore, she claims they interlink the minds of those under this spell. Years can pass within these dreams in the span of a few of the waking world's hours. Evacuate all of humanity into this state, and the specter of the end is banished. Just one problem remained: how to make the illusion span the globe. The Order sought the answer in the pages of the Ars Magica. An amplifier for illusions. Persapius himself confirmed that such a method did exist. Yet his next words were resolute.
Fleeing into illusion means the defeat of mankind.
The monster regained human form, a familiar one at that.
There's something going on. But what? It's our duty to get our hands dirty. I'm not gonna let old do keep up, child. It was what it used to be.
The monster regained human form, a familiar one at that. It was the third Red Hood, Semelia. What was happening? She seemed unreal somehow, and I felt dizzy looking at her.
Please, think. This is...
With that, the red sorcerer vanished into smoke. Was it just an illusion? It seemed the stuff of dreams. As I looked around, I saw it. There, where Semelia had stood, was a fragmented apple. No. Why would she leave such a message? What had she hoped to say? The apple shades had already been used. Grimm's plan was now in action. I stood in a world of illusion. The unending dream the Order sought to make. It must have happened as I made my way to face Magusar. Persapius sat stock still, holding his head and mumbling to himself. The souls of the dead inhabit this illusory world too, provided they dwell in living flesh. Persapius remembered.
You know, I'm already dead. I was killed.
It happened just before this illusion consumed us. He rose against Magusar, bringer of the world's end, but failed and paid the price. Terwin then swept in and sacrificed the old man. He was just a soul now, bound to her right arm.
I cannot remember anything new.
No, not even his own death. And so the Ars Magica passed to Grimm, and they took action. The world around me was illusion. As soon as I realized, I found myself surrounded. I heard her voice in my head.
It wasn't meant to be this way.
It was too late.
So, this is to be our victim. Doing fine. It'll take more than... They don't know who they're dealing with here. This thing can't kill me. You really think you can defeat me?
Do keep up, child. Keep up,
I'll kill anyone I see.
I heard her voice in my head.
It wasn't meant to be this way.
Was it Samelia? The illusion links the minds of those it swallows. Samelia's voice rang out inside me.
The apple shades. They were never meant for this.
It was a black rite they'd used, ancient and powerful. It extended the apple shade's reach across the entire world. In this new world, bereft of gods, Terwin tried to become one. Persapius's voice was fading fast.
May the words I've been entrusted reach as many ears as possible.
He said it was his mission. As a man who'd given up his life to serve as a vessel of memory.
I fear I can do naught but leave all this to you.
He meant to entrust his memories to my own right arm. To offer up the fragment of his soul that remained as sacrifice.
No matter how dire the memory, it can still be passed on. Let it, in time, become new hope.
His final words seemed almost like a prayer. The collective memory passed down to each Persapius is vast. It spans far more than magic. It represents the whole of human knowledge. And what the old man strove to pass on was more than knowledge alone. I need only raise my right arm to listen to his voice within to know that.
The world is unfair at its core. To mankind, history reads as a series of cruel barbs. Death, the worst of them all. However, it is precisely because of our mortality that we endeavor to leave some form of legacy behind. For most, that legacy is children. As copies of ourselves, they take a piece of us onward to eternity. The office of Persapius, too, is charged with leaving a legacy. Delivering the wealth of human knowledge to those yet to come. When this cruel world beats you down, turn and look behind you. See the long, unbroken chain of history protected by these men. See that we frail humans have fought tooth and nail to survive this crucible. At times, that trail can stoke the fire of courage in those who come after. The memories of all those with the name of Persapius are more than just a history. They are hope. Taking in this stream of unbroken experience allows a man to see certain things. For each time mankind has cursed the world, we've loved it twice as much in return. That is why we cling to life, living between the earth and sky, why we fight to the end. To gorge ourselves on an easy life of endless dreams is to forget our animal nature. The measure of a human life is not counted in years. It's in what we leave behind in death. We're the same as beasts, desperate to leave offspring. Be it a child, an act, a single word. Some proof, once our days have ended, that we were here. Some trail. For the trail of one man's life is another's beacon of hope. Let hope remain after each of us has left to survive beyond. And as long as it endures, man's history will continue.
I search for Magusar even now, but there's not a trace of him left. I imagine barring him alone from this dream world was the crux of their plan. Persapius' soul spoke from within me.
What can you leave this world?
The bonds I share with my partner, that will be my legacy. I would say this to Magusar as he fights the madness that consumes him. The bonds we share are the truest proof of our existence. I must escape this false world and hurry to his side. Terwin, hierarch of Grimm, and creator of this illusion. Finally, my search for her bore fruit. This world was crafted to suit her whims. However, I had my doubts that my magic could even reach her. But still I fought, on and on, to shatter this illusion. Until I lost all sense of time. As she... As she set her monsters on me, she began to tell a story.
For the sake of amusement.
She said, once, long ago, there lived a girl and her young brother. Her childhood was complex, for she was born of a sorcerer and a common woman. With that parentage came a host of troubles. Her brother was a pure mage and true bred. The two of them, as children, met a nameless sorcerer. He told all manner of tales. Tales of how he built the world anew using the sacred chalice. And even the Prophet Grimm's theory of eternal recursion. The girl was awed, and in time her fondness for the man grew. The boy was envious.
We are those siblings.
Terwin declared. Well, if I was to believe her, she was equal part a man. Two souls inhabited her body. The nameless sorcerer had told the children,
one day, I will lose sight of myself.
it was as he'd said. He took the name of Magusar. Driven by her love, she sought a way to save the nameless sorcerer. But the brother saw his chance to win her back and plotted the man's murder. His sister sought to stop him. There was no choice, she said. No other way to stop her brother turned monster by his jealousy. It was only after she had claimed his soul as part of her that she came to understand. Only after sacrificing him did she feel the depth of his love. A love which could not be. For all the suffering her blood had brought her, it was far worse for him. The siblings cursed their fate and raged against the unfair world. That rage became their fuel. They spread Grimm's prophecy, having seen the cruelty at the heart of eternal recursion. Hearing her tale, I could not help but voice the question. Had she woven this illusion to be reunited with her brother? Her expression quickly changed. Had she found her brother's soul?
Why won't he smile for me?
Had she found her brother's soul? For the first time, I felt able to relate to the fiends rampaging before me. It's only human to want to see lost loved ones again. If such a thing could happen here, who among us would deny this dream world? Even knowing it for a false comfort, would the salvation found be any less real? Doubt gripped me like a length of heavy chain. I fell to my knees, unable to rise again. What man has never cursed the world? Never wept at life's iniquity? The force that drives her is shared by all mankind. That was when I noticed. When I understood. I suppose this sort of thing can happen in a dream world. No matter how muddled my memories, one image remains with me crystal clear. And there it was. Her face. I expect she came to ridicule me for nearly giving up. She enticed me with the same words she said when we first met.
Rise.
She said, dead souls bound to the flesh of the living linger here. Apparently, it seemed, she was no exception. For there she was, my old partner, just as she looked then. A question always plagued me. Did she hate me for what I'd done? Would she see who I'd become and forgive me for sacrificing her? I had told her nothing, I realized. All this while, I just listened to her voice, not answering. Surely there was no end to the things I wanted to say to her. But here she was at last, and I had no idea where to begin.
All right, let's go. Come on.
Even then, during the ordeal, she always walked a step ahead. As if she knew the answer lay around the next turn.
So, aren't you keeping someone on the outside, waiting?
Standing next to her, a wave of powerful nostalgia washed over me. The real world's not all bad. The vivid memory of those days with her told me as much.
And you'll not regret it. Now, get moving. The ordeal continues.
And you'll not regret it.
Terwyn spat the question at me through ragged breaths. If I ended her, this dream world would likely end as well. It would mean farewell. For Terwyn and her brother. For me, with dear Sortiara. In all likelihood, the parting would prove final this time. I looked at Sortiara. Her face was exactly as it had been the day our ordeal began. It stabbed at my heart. She looked the same for a reason. Her time had stopped then, and I'd gone on living without her. We would never inhabit the same time again, she and I. This Sortiara was a ghost, an echo of a memory, become an illusion. Sad though it was, my duties lay elsewhere, beyond this place. I turned my back on her, for the sight of her face chips away at my resolve. I raised my hand to Terwyn's body, prepared to finish my business. All of a sudden, a second, thinner arm appeared. Sortiara placed her hand on mine. As the illusion crumbled, she offered me a faint smile. You chose well, it seemed to say. The memories of Terwyn and her brother flowed into me, together with their souls. I met them once, long ago when they were still children. No, that was Illicibra's memory, not mine. An after-image of their youthful faces remains engraved in my arm. It's plausible, assuming Illicibra's partner and the man Terwyn fell in love with are one and the same. The man who rekindled a dead world with the chalice. The one who took up the name of Magusar, his memories in chaos. The man I called a partner. Magusar's gift was not for seeing the future. No, his visions were of the past, muddled fragments of old memories. He saw how the world repeated, what mechanisms were behind it. What he called premonitions were likely just glimpses of memories of before. The nameless sorcerer strove to change the world. His words took root and spread as prophecy. So Grimm was born. Terwin was moved more than any. Perhaps his words had too great an influence on her. If fate had been changed only slightly, she may never have become the monster she did. If, perhaps, the nameless one she loved had not succumbed, if he had remained the same... Terwin fought to change the world in her own way. Indeed, she fought to be reunited with her brother. But if that was her sole want, she needn't change the world. Greater than any selfish desire was her love for that sorcerer. Her reverence for him drove her to save the world in his place. In her own way. Such was the influence the man's words bore on the world. He had already been fighting a long, long time before we met. Struggling against unjust fate. It was too great a task for any one man. I couldn't simply leave it to him. Even if he did come from an older world, he was still my partner in this one. The dream world Terwin had crafted began to crumble. As the fragments rained down, I saw Sortiara's lips move.
You're leaving, aren't you?
I would never see her again. No price, no sacrifice could hurt as deeply as that realization.
The Red Sorcerer. She calls for you.
I nodded, but my feet refused to carry me away from her. I had still not spoken a word. The emotion surged and rose in me, but I could not speak. More than anything, I think I'd always wanted to apologize. Since the day I'd ended her life. A cowardly, selfish urge, I know. To ask forgiveness of the woman I had murdered.
It's all right.
I watched her lips form the words.
I was always with you.
I found salvation in those words, though they made our inexorable parting all the harder. I was cursed to lose her a second time. Her hand came to rest on my right arm.
This is my home now. We can meet any time you wish.
She smiled softly as the world around us grew brighter. Amidst the spreading glow, her voice washed over me like a tender caress along an open wound. She said,
Please, don't make that face.
When I woke from the illusion, Semelia was beside me, pale. She had been the first to wake, and immediately sought me out. Terwin's soul and memory, housed now in my arm, enlightened me about this world. I saw it for what it was. The prophet worshipped by the Order was me, from a prior world. Each time Jeffrey Libram bore witness to the end, he placed his hope in a new nameless sorcerer. In the vague, distant future.
If the prophecy holds true, awful things await you.
I set off despite her attempts to stop me. She looked ill with worry. Some paths cannot be abandoned, even if they lead to despair. I felt sure I would make the same choice, should the world repeat 10,000 times. It would be ironic if that same stubbornness played a part in the world returning as it does. But, even so, I won't leave Magusar to shoulder the burden of an unfair world alone. And if I truly had passed on my hopes to him in a prior life, then all the more reason. For I chose to believe those hopes had yielded this fate. Panic on her face, Semelia called out to stop me.
I want to find a way to change your fate. Nice moves. What shall we do with you?
I won't die.
So that's your choice.
Panic on her face, Samilia called out to stop me.
But is it? Is it really all the same?
I had my doubts as well. After all, the prophecy mentioned nothing of the great dream that had trapped mankind.
If I had never heard those words, I might not even have been here.
This is where your story begins. The words I had spoken in a prior world changed a girl's fate in this one. It was an optimistic thought, but perhaps the course of the world had been altered. Samilia looked as if she'd had an epiphany.
If we destroyed that, then maybe...
It was absurd. But if such a thing did happen, it would surely drive the world further off course. A big if. And how had she even thought of such a ludicrous plan under these conditions?
Here. It was just here. It appeared right before me.
I suddenly understood why she looked so unwell. She says it floats before her still. Another worldly, white vessel. Time marched towards its end once more. The sacred chalice. Bestowed upon the world by one of its creators in order to see their divine will given form, or so the story goes. Then why appear now? Why present itself to Samilia?
If we destroyed this, then who knows?
The chalice has a role in the eternal recursion, true enough. She may be right. Removing it from the equation might yield some change. Might alter the nature of this unfair world. That hope soon died, and the realization it left stung deep. The chalice was an artifact given by the world's creator. I was naive to dismiss it as legend. We both were. Clearly, the world's recursion was the will of some great consciousness. And the chalice remains connected to that being. We were taught that our brief conspiracy to destroy the chalice was a treason upon the very nature of the world. The moment our spells struck it, space itself tore violently open. Perhaps that vast consciousness noticed us from past the veil, took note of our tiny rebellion. I have no words to describe what appeared before us then. One rises in my mind, though, that begins to encompass its all.
What's that? One rises in my mind, though, that begins to encompass its all. God. The will of the Creator, given form and place. Black bolts of divine judgment flashed brighter still, then lashed out to claim us both. I moved to shield Semilia from the brunt of it. And yet, it was she who pushed me aside. I saw her body flayed and broken. Perhaps we provoked the Creator's ire in our efforts to defy the nature of our world. Or perhaps that divine wrath was proof of something else. That we were succeeding in driving the world off its ordained course. And then, another flash appeared. It seemed almost human, this thing grappling with the giant.
They clashed and locked, growing more distant by the minute. For a fraction of a second, I saw a face I recognized. No. Could it be Magusar? Our moment of despair passed, leaving us in stark silence. I approached Semelia's body and lost whatever words I'd planned to say. I tried to patch her wounds, but she merely shook her head.
It's too late. Just please stay.
How much more would be taken away before the end finally came?
I know. To you, I'm just one of a long line of acquaintances. But you're the first one who even remembered my name. The words you left behind found their way to me. They saved me. If this is fate, then the gods are spiteful beings. But you understand, your first partner was dear to you too, no? That's what you are to me. I feel no different. Sortiara was her name, wasn't it? Your old partner? I heard you whisper it just before you woke up from the illusion. I wish I hadn't. It was hearing that name that brought it here to me. Hearing that name is what called the chalice here. The wish that brought it was impulsive, raw, stupid emotion. I didn't want to save the world, or anything so noble. It was a childish desire. I wanted to be special to you, to be your one and only. But I resisted. I couldn't do that to you, violate those cherished memories. Please, just let me die. If you'd know when my soul became a part of your arm. You'd know. You'd see my heart. All my jealousy and envy and the ugly things inside me. I just couldn't bear it. But please, just remember this of me. Remember, I was glad that I met you. If the world's doomed to repeat, I look forward to meeting you again. I won't be able to stay with you, inside you. But please, think of me sometimes. Please.
I took the apple she had held and placed it in my robes. A meager memento. She'd refused to dwell within my right arm. With this, I'd be able to recall the red of her cowl no matter how addled my memory grew. Some distance away, Magusar remained locked in combat, bringing his own will to bear against that avatar of divinity. Despite the mingling of memories and collapse of his identity, it remained within him. The duty to change this cruel world. He'd come from the previous world as a sorcerer with no name, bearing the hope that the world could alter. From his unusual actions, I could see what he was trying to achieve. Like Semelia, he sought to destroy it. I knew it must be there, hanging before him now. A chalice only he could see. Thunderclaps pierced the sky. I felt they were a chorus of ill omen, harbingers of despair. A fissure split the sky, and white light poured through it. I was made to bear witness. To watch the world pass sentence on a man with the hubris to rebel. A second giant descended. It was a sight taken directly from legend. The chalice's destruction.
This is where our...
The chalice's destruction. Was that not the nameless sorcerer's aim all along? Even while he traveled with me, Magusar sought the chalice. The reason he pursued it changed as his memories addled. Perhaps in the beginning, he'd set out to save the world. I couldn't rid myself of this thought. Rebellion against the Creator. It was the nameless sorcerer's will that had brought this about. It was a futile battle. Yet, I could not help but find hope in it. I knew he couldn't win. I was sure something in the world had changed. It was a subtle victory. Magusar kept on fighting. Long after losing any semblance of normal consciousness, my partner muttered something under his breath. The words were strange, yet familiar. They filled me with courage. This is where your story begins. I had to pass those words on, even if the world's end claimed all else. Had to see them safe to the next world's Red Hood, to be her hope. I thought back to Persepius's last words. The trail of one man's life can be another's beacon of hope. Perhaps our journey is a battle to pass on that torch. A handful of humans were able to draw the very gods out of hiding. Let that fact shine as hope for all we can accomplish. For now, we'll struggle till the last breath leaves us, so that those who come after us might take courage from our story. The world may end, but dreams will persist. Magusar couldn't age or die. Even that was the result of conscious preparation for the day he would fight the gods. I believed that. Anyone would, having witnessed his tenacity. These memories the nameless sorcerer brought with him, the words and thoughts that he carried beyond the cycle of the world, now shook it. This is where our story begins. Those brief words were all it took to change the fate of the girl in red. We now faced the gods because she sought to destroy the chalice. Were it not for those words, the world may have ended differently. How long did the battle last? In the end, Magusar fell, and the gods took hold of his body. Now they're pawn. Magusar came for me. I was torn apart, limb from limb. The only reason I still live is because my partner, now a monster, shared his blood with me. His immortal blood has made me a difficult man to kill. Even now, with his mind gone and his body stolen away, my partner still exists somewhere deep inside. If I truly hope to take up his mantle, I cannot back down now. I must stand resolute against the gods raging within him. And so, our arduous fight began. For years we fought. Until, losing all humanity, he became a tyrant, the whole world in his grasp. Sacrifices were brought from every quarter to extend his life. Each passing battle claimed more of me, until barely scraps of flesh remained. But I never lost hope. How could I, considering all that I'd inherited? It fell to me now to pass that on to my successor. That final wish changed my body. I took on a form well suited to the passing of knowledge. I was struck, seeing my body. Books of magic are oft referred to as grimoires. Grimoire. Grim. I could not think it a coincidence. The Prophet Grimm was, in truth, a grimoire, a book of prophecy. A single glance, and I was sure. The knowledge I passed on this way would educate those after me. Even in ways I couldn't imagine. If miracles do exist, no man is capable of prophesying them. That is precisely why. No matter what the crisis, we mustn't turn away from it. Hope can always be found if people pass it on.
You've read me at great length. Do you see what this all means? Magusar appears human enough, but the will of the Creator echoes within him. Yes, indeed, you are up against a god. But there is no other way to change this wretched world. I'm going to ask you again. Is this truly your final choice? If the world were to repeat itself, I would want another nameless one. There is no doubt the world is changing. The nameless one never appeared.
Mine and yours. Together.
I know that I can entrust you with these. My own scattered memories, and the traces of lives long lost. Now you face a truly perilous journey. But remember these words. This is where your story begins. Do not fail me now. My name is Jeffrey Librom, author of that diary. I give you my soul. Go ahead, sacrifice me. They've taken root within your soul. All the memories formed in this confounding world. Along with those words of hope that survived the world's rebirth time after time. Kill that rotten fiend, Magusar. Him and the grand conscience that has claimed his mind and body. It's what Magusar himself would want. He has always fought, from ages long past, to make this confounded world right. Memories convoluted, his own identity in tatters, but still he fights on. All because I pleaded with him in the last world, as I plead before you, even now. A strange kinship is ours. To me, Magusar is a very special friend. Ours is a bond that can never be broken. No matter how many times the world is reborn.
Now, a new story begins. I speak in Librom's place, heir to the thoughts of countless victims. This world, ruled by capricious gods, is at its end. The torch is passed to the mortals. Yes, this begins the age of humans.
You have finally come. Destroy me, and this deific will that controls me.
I realized that Grand Conscience had not taken complete control of him. He was suppressing its deific will with all his might, waiting for the moment to topple the god. How many lifetimes has he waited? And now, he begs you to destroy him. His eyes speak volumes. He will sacrifice anything to change this world.
Destroy them.
Briefly, the will of the god weakened, and Magusar was able to contain it. Magusar is begging you to destroy him. And at this moment, it may just be possible. This for humanity. But it requires a sacrifice. The sacrifice of Magusar, who fought tirelessly to end the madness of this world. Will saving Magusar ruin all that he has fought for? Sacrifice Magusar and change the world? Or save him, no matter what it entails? It is in your hands how this story will end. Through sacrifice, your arm absorbed all the things that weighed upon Magusar. The will of the Creator within Magusar shattered, but the memories remained. Memories that hint at the true form of this world. The visions were dizzying. The foes we faced were only a tiny glimpse into the Creator.
This is not the end.
Magusar spoke from within my arm, where Librom's soul also resides.
But our time here is done.
What have we left to the world?
Whatever it is, my heir will make something of it.
Did we leave hope?
Your fight has purpose. I was watching all along.
Thank you. If so, then this was not a bad life.
Anyone born into this world must come to terms with its absurdity. The grand will continues to gaze upon our world from beyond. And the strength dwelling in your right arm can be used to resist the madness. The arm used to sacrifice the deific will, a sliver of which remains. A god's wisdom, a god's strength. A mortal assumes divine strength and stands up to face the gods. Only then can mortals claim this world for their own. A world where humans do not depend upon heavenly miracles. Impossible, it would seem. But even so, voices are heard from within the arm. Wish for it, and the world will change. Mankind will always hold hope for the future. But in the shadow of hope lies despair. The torment of dashed hope is itself a great price. The price of our bottomless want, surpassing that of all other beings. No matter the hardship faced, mankind will always hope, pray, and dream. Just look into the past. The pages of history are filled with people brimming with hope. It is only those who never lose hope who can change their own fate. Before you lose hope, think back to the tale that is told by a strange and magical book. Libram's final words changed everything. Our world, our fate, and our future. Let us part with those words, so the people of the future will not lose hope. Let this be our legacy. This is where your story begins.
Lost is me.